restaurants that don't have that kind of commercial, that don't have it.
Yeah.
So the others part, they're making up for it. And there's some dirt jobs.
Yeah.
To go on.
Yeah.
And those that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Not, no money, but a lot of time.
There we are.
You get used to it.
My brother always wants to FaceTime when he calls. Oh, why do you want to do that? He says, oh, come on.
My girlfriend's set up a FaceTime. And so I can't, it wasn't quite time, it was ringing and my phone rang and I just called. Dang it. I mean, it was planned for like a week, so I called back and it put me in. But on my phone with four of us, we were like this big, you know, like, and we were all talking at once, it was just horrible, but it was really fun to see them. Hi, Ray.
Hello. Hi, guys. I see Linda is joining the staff.
Yes, we wanted her to be able to see the interviewees.
Thank you. Because Rich offered,
Oh, that
up
was
there, and
nice.
of course, I have this thing about vocal doesn't match. If there's a lag, the vision. Glasses. Yeah. And when I'm watching TV and I see people that they're putting their face right up
I know,
the
I
screen.
don't like that. What I don't have a hard time with is, like, I was just in a meeting this afternoon. There was four of us in the meeting, and so I know my camera's like up here, but I'm looking at the people that are talking. So then do they think I'm looking down, you know, because you don't have your head positioned correctly? I don't know what it looks like. I don't know too much, but it's weird.
So I don't watch a whole lot of talk TV. Bothers me. Always has.
Oh, good.
7th of March.
Hi, Dan.
I've been home since the
Good evening, everybody.
Dan,
Hi, Dan.
is that a beer?
How's everybody?
Good,
I didn't
how
answer that.
are you?
I'm great, thanks. Not spending nearly as much time commuting as I used to.
Oh my gosh, I finally went to the gas station Saturday for the first time since the COVID started.
I've been,
I
Wow.
still had a quarter of a tank.
I've been once. I took both rigs because they were almost. And I couldn't remember. I used to pump my own gas when I lived in California. Never thought anything of it, you know. It was, well, these pumps are, oh,
I didn't have to pump.
where'd you go?
Fred Meyer.
Now, they have to.
Oh, okay,
Now they have to.
okay, because that was Saturday.
Yeah, I think,
It's been a while that they haven't been,
no.
and I pull up and sit there and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what do I do first?
first?
Yeah, and I'm always, hey, I need help. I hate being needy.
There he is. Hi, Rod.
Hello there. Am I on?
How are you?
Hi, Ron.
I'm on. Good, good. Thank you, Izetta, for sending that out.
You're welcome.
I know I saw it somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I was just telling Linda, I guess I should have just sent it out again. I just, in my head, everybody had it. So,
I don't know. I went through all of your emails.
well, and I think I mailed that one too, but
Well, I couldn't remember if it was email or hand delivered, but
I don't remember getting it from them.
you don't remember.
maybe it's in our boxes.
Very fun.
That could be it. That could be it.
God, I forgot about the boxes.
I did clean out the boxes recently and went, yeah, nobody needs this anymore.
How'd you sneak in there, Linda? I would have come by. I was right across the street at a meeting.
We wanted her to be able to see tonight, and she can't see from her house, from her connection.
Oh.
So I'm gonna ask everyone as you come into the room, if you will, tell me who you are. Like Dan says Dan, and I know it's Dan Richardson, but now I have someone here that says Rochelle. Nobody, maybe, and I don't know who that is, so if you'll unmute yourself.
Randall.
My name is John Grant.
Oh, John Grant.
Yes.
There. Hi, John.
Hi, Rod.
Okay, thank you.
Izetta,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I wanted in the minutes that I asked Linda if she would like to join us over at my house, and she blew me off and turned me down flat.
She got a better offer.
Yeah, sorry.
What are you serving, Mayor?
No, we're live.
Yeah, leave it on.
The best bologna sandwich you've ever had.
You got the good stuff.
Oh, I couldn't make it from here to your house in time.
Yeah, before we get started, I'll just throw out there to the room and whoever's listening, if you haven't heard it on the radio or anywhere else, the Columbia Gorge Veterans Museum, which was part of the American Legion building, and it was a donation by American Legion. They've sold their building last May, and the new contract for August 1, we can't do it. So we are looking for another location, preferably a donation, shared location or something else. But we'd be glad to talk with anybody. But yeah, we just are not prepared for downtown rents without some help. So we need to be out by July 31. So the race is on.
How much space do you need, Rod?
We have about 875 square feet now. And we utilize about half of that in the museum and half of it in storage. A little office and storage area.
Okay.
There's so many empty buildings downtown, you'd think we'd be willing to share a space. Maybe that would get somebody to rent the other half or something too. Because some of those have been empty for years, but anyway, we're just beginning that search this last week and that's going on. You'll be hearing more about it. I think it's important to the community, but I guess we'll find out. It covers 5 counties, both sides of the river. That's our mission, is for the Columbia Gorge. That's why it's called the Columbia Gorge Veterans Museum.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, Rod,
Yeah,
did you keep track of the foot traffic coming in?
and this was to be our big year. It's taken about, this is going into our 4th year. And of course, we're closed till just this last week. We opened up from noon to 4, Wednesday through Saturday. And we will be Wednesday through Saturday this week. And we do keep track of that. But, the first couple of years was kind of getting the name out there. And last year was better. And now we were looking towards the largest tour boat season ever. And of course, that's not happening. And we had several funding vehicles planned, and they're not going to happen because of the Chinese flu. So there you go. So, but we're welcome to all ideas.
Oh, there's Jeff.
As you come in, can you tell me your name just so that I know who's here? I don't know everybody. I can see Jeff Stiles just joined us, but then there's someone who's connecting. Galaxy View.
That might be me.
Yes.
John Willer.
Yeah, you say John, I got you. I'm sorry. Galaxy View, you are?
Scott Randall.
Thank you. Weird. Yeah, Dawn is the one that. We still have.
She's having trouble getting on.
I have.
There's, yeah, there's Steve right there. There's Dawn.
No, it's Donna.
Okay, so everybody's here, so we're good.
Is that us? That's the panels.
That's me.
Oh, that's your laptop.
Yeah, that's me trying to. I take my audio.
I got 5:30.
And I think everyone's here, Mayor.
Okay, I'm missing Darcy and Donna. Are they here?
Yes, Darcy's here. Darcy's just a name, but no picture. But Donna is connecting to audio right now, so she's in. She's just not quite connected yet. It's giving us little fingers that it's moving.
Okay, so you think it's okay if I start the meeting?
I think so. I think everybody can hear us.
Okay. Okay, I'm calling this meeting to order. It's a special meeting of the City Council for May 26, 2020. Can I ask the city clerk to please call the roll?
Linda Miller, present. Darcy Long Curtis,
Present.
Tim McLaughlin,
Present.
and Rod Bunyan.
Present.
Mayor Mays? Good. Oh, and position 3 is vacant. I'm supposed to say that.
Okay. I see Pledge of Allegiance on the agenda, and I would like to ask Councilman Rod Runyon to lead us in the pledge.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Nice touch.
Very nice.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
Of America,
and to
to
the
the republic,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
That was very nice. I like that.
I had a bigger one.
Hi, Diana.
no, I won't.
Okay,
say anything.
can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
And if we don't do it, we go home. Oh, we are home.
You are home, Rod.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
And I will second it, Tim McLaughlin.
It's been moved by Councilman Runyon and seconded by Councilman McLaughlin to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Rod says
Aye.
aye.
Tim
I
says
hear
aye.
4 votes in favor. Okay, my understanding is that all 7 city council candidates are present,
Yes, sir.
right? Okay. One of the issues I think we'll have to, we'll just be discussing after the council, after the interviews are over, is whether or not we can go ahead tonight and nominate someone, or whether we should wait until the June 8th city council meeting. I know there's opinions on both sides, but we will forego that discussion until after the interviews and then discuss whether or not we want to do it tonight or whether we want to wait till June the 8th, which is our next council meeting. The city council has all 7 applications in front of them, I trust. And the city council and the candidates have all been given the questions in advance. And I would, I'll be conducting the meeting in a forum fashion, asking each question and going in order. And then whoever gets the question last will start question 2. They'll start with that question, and then we'll go in reverse order back to the first applicant. I would ask that the council, if you'd like to ask a follow-up question, I think it's fine, but ask all questions that you ask in a follow-up must pertain to the original question asked. And I will ask before I move on if there's any follow-up questions, but if I happen to miss that, feel free to pipe up. Yes, Rod?
I understand starting with 1 and going to the end and then back. And then at that point, you will pick somebody else in the middle or wherever, so that everybody has a chance to be the first one to answer a question.
Okay, I will start with the first candidate, go through number 7, and then we'll go from 7 down to 1, and then we'll start in the middle, say 3 or 4 on the third question, and go back and forth and do the same on the 4th and 5th question. Is that okay with everybody?
Or number 2 or whatever, but yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I'm asking everyone to mute themselves when they're not talking, and when you're going to talk, make sure you mute yourself. If you don't, I'm sure we'll have plenty of people to remind you to unmute yourself, and everybody can hear, so that shouldn't be a problem. Again, please raise your hand to be acknowledged. I don't see everybody, so if I don't see you, just pipe up, and we're just going to do the best we can with that. Is there any questions about the process before we start? Okay. Originally, when we were going to be doing this back in March, Izetta and I had talked about drawing straws to see who goes first. Obviously, we can't do that today, so if it's okay with everybody, I'm just going to start with the packet. All the applications are in the packet. I'm just going to start with the first one who's in the packet. I'm going to announce the order. And just be prepared, okay? In the first position will be Donna Lawrence. The second position will be Jeff Stiles. Third position is John Willer. Fourth is Tiffany Prince. Fifth is Scott Randall. Sixth is John Grant. And seventh is Dan Richardson. I'll ask Donna the first question, and then I'll go through all seven answering the first question, and then we will start with Dan Richardson on the second question and go back to Donna. And then on the third question, I'll start with Tiffany and go up to number 7 and then come back through the front. And then on the last question, I'll start with, I believe, Scott and go backwards and then come back the other way. Okay, everybody ready to go here?
You'll announce them by name as you go, right?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Donna, are you there?
Unmute yourself.
I got you, Donna.
Thank you. Am I unmuted
You there,
now?
Don? Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Donna. The first question is,
Choose an easy one.
what is your understanding of the difference between policymaking and administration?
My understanding is that city council makes policy, and then the staff's job or city manager is to carry out the policy. And there has to be a building of trust and respect between the two entities in order to carry that out properly.
Okay. Jeff Stiles.
First of all, I expect everyone can hear me. And thank you all for taking the time to do this. It's been quite the experience with COVID-19. But to answer the question, the simple answer is that the council is to make the policies, the laws, the rules, the guidelines that run the city. The administrator's job is to carry that out, maintain it and enforce it, and generally manage the policies. The harder answer is that to make a policy or law or whatever to actually resolve a problem that we're trying to deal with. And of course, for the administration side of things, it's to actually implement that policy along with all the other policies that are currently on the books.
Thank you. John Willer.
My
Same question.
understanding is that policy is made by the council and it's implemented by the administration. The council doesn't get involved in day-to-day and micromanagement, and they delegate that to administration. That's short and sweet.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to write down pretty much what people say, so just bear with me if there's any delays. Anybody got a follow-up question for John? Okay. Tiffany Prince.
Hi, so I have a lot of experience with this, being previously the executive assistant to the Board of Education here at Columbia Gorge Community College. And so I would just say that very shortly that, like other people have been saying, City Council, they set those policies for administration to act out on, but I have a little different kind of perspective. I think that also administration, they do the day-to-day work, and they are experts more or less in the field. And so we would also probably want to take consideration their thoughts and perspectives and maybe even working as a team in developing policies, but staying out of the day-to-day operations and leaving that up to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up question for Tiffany? Scott Randall.
I'm unmuting him, trying to. You need to unmute yourself. It's not letting me, so across the
There you go.
bottom of each screen.
Okay. Yeah, policy making is the process of reviewing and discussing, negotiating, and formulating the rules and regulations that govern the community. And the administration is the implementation and enforcement of the rules and those policies. I think there's an important relationship between the two, administrators and the policymakers. And good communications are crucial because there's always potential for unintended consequences when forming policy. And I think an experienced administrator can anticipate some of those unintended consequences and help guide the policymakers through the process and help produce a more robust policy that's less likely to be interpreted incorrectly.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions for Scott? Okay, next is John Grant. John? Unmute yourself, John.
Yes, the policy, from my understanding, is being able to adopt an idea, a plan, coming up with the basic idea, and then the administration of this to be able to carry that out through rules and being it basically in action.
Did everybody hear that okay?
It seems really slow and dragging,
Like a slow connection. or
like a slow
something.
connection.
Yeah, there's definitely something wrong. I couldn't make out any of it.
Would you like me to try
Do you want to have him call in and stuff?
Would you like to disconnect and call back, or would you like to use a telephone, or you could use chat? I think he's gonna call in.
John, did you hear that?
Let me try to.
Okay, John, while you're doing that, we're gonna move on and we'll be looking out for you, okay?
I think he disconnected.
Yeah, I think he disconnected.
Okay, Dan Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding is that policymaking is the strategic vision offered by the City Council in its discussions and negotiations and budgeting and voting. And administration, on the other hand, is the day-to-day working out of the city's business and carrying out that business with guidance from the City Council's policies. I've seen a number of boards in my time in my first career as a reporter covering local governments here and there. And the relationships that seemed to be most effective were those I observed where both sides, so board and staff, were respectful of the limits of policy versus administration, did not impinge on the responsibilities of the other, but also fulfilled their responsibilities and did not lean too heavily. So in other words, for the board or for the council, that would mean actively learning and hearing from staff and providing really clear policy direction. So let's see, to offer a metaphor, policy making is reading the map, setting the destination, and administration is driving the car to that destination.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions for Dan? Okay, question number 2 is we'll start with Dan.
Mr. Mayor, can we check and make sure we have John Grant? Is that John on the phone?
Yeah. Hello?
Is that you, John?
John's there?
Can everybody hear me?
We can,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very
All
well,
right.
thank you.
Sorry about
We
that.
could hear you we could hear you the first time, but it was like in slow motion.
I could not hear it at all. Is it proper to have him repeat? Because I could not make out a word.
Okay, John, you want to quickly go, you're up twice here in a row, or no, the second question. We'll start with Dan and then go to you, but do you want to repeat what you had said in answer to question number 1, please? The difference between.
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. From my understanding, the policy is the adoption of a plan or ideas and overall guideline. And then as far as administration's part of it is for putting plan into action and actually enforcing going with the day-to-day operation.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up question for John on that one?
No.
Okay, we're going to go with question 2 here. We're starting with Dan Richardson and working backwards in the reverse order of the first order. Question number 2, an issue that you are particularly interested in approving comes before the council for a vote. The motion fails on a 4-to-1 vote. How do you respond? Dan.
Thank you. That's a great question because I suppose it's going to happen to most counselors from time to time. And I would say win some, lose some. On the other hand, it makes me think that maybe the key question here that we want to address isn't how do you respond so much as maybe how do you make your best case to persuade the other counselors? I guess what I'm suggesting is that the council's vote is about the last step on a path and not the first. So if a counselor, if I have an issue that I'm particularly vested in or something that speaks to me, I suppose it would be wise for me to discuss that and the implications of that idea or that interest with staff and also maybe vested interest individuals in the community and with individual council members one-on-one. So the result of a vote, I would argue, ideally wouldn't be a surprise, but rather the working out of a campaign of information gathering and advocacy. And the idea would be that you'd be building consensus, making your best case during that time. So to give an example briefly, say you have an issue that you want the council to fund for $30,000 for some program and it gets voted down. Maybe with some more advocating, with some more conversation, building a stronger consensus or a clearer one, you can go back next year and get a win for $20,000. So getting a win is something is a win.
Thank you. Any follow-up question there for Dan? Okay, John, you're up next. John Grant.
Yes, sir. Okay. So I think the number one thing would be to get feedback on why the vote went the way that it did, and then try to go back to the drawing board and seeing what mistakes that you previously made and what you can do to improve to be able to bring that idea to the board again to have that voted upon. If it doesn't go my way one more time, then I think that kind of need to tuck that away and if it comes up at a later date, figure out what needs to be improved upon it one more time, and just have an understanding that sometimes things like this would happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up question there? Scott Randall.
Still muted.
You're muted.
There you go.
Yeah, like I say, such a lopsided outcome should raise some concerns about your communications and your relationship with the other council members. I would expect to have a pretty good understanding of how each of the council members will be voting in the discussions leading up to the vote. And that's the area where, like others have said, you seek common ground and try to make concessions and make some compromise. And I'm all about standing for principle, but you got to be able to compromise to be an effective member of a governing body. So I think if you had that lopsided outcome and you could maybe find some way to make some concessions and perhaps bring the vote up, bring the issue up again for another vote. And if you still can't get other members to come along with you, then maybe it's time to accept the results and move on.
Thank you. Follow-up questions? Tiffany Prince?
Okay. At the end of the road of finally getting to a vote, if something that I am particularly heavily invested in goes for a 4-1 vote, then that's a fail on my part and a fail to my team members on city council, because that's a pretty drastic vote. However, I would respond appropriately and tactfully to the majority vote. And if they voted in opposition of it, I would respect and support my colleagues' decision on that.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions for Tiffany? John Willer?
I have 4 points. Don't take it personally. Don't hold grudges. Move on. Don't undermine the results of the vote. The vote is the vote of the council. You're part of the council. Own it. The other thing is when you look at a 4-1 vote, you got to think that you're the outsider. Maybe there's something that everybody else sees that you didn't see. So maybe you ought to do some reflection and some analysis.
John, could you repeat those first 2 points that you made real quick, please?
Don't take it personally and don't hold grudges.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, any follow-up? Jeff Stiles.
Yes, I agree with all the past applicants, what they said, building consensus, don't take it personally, work toward negotiating a outcome that you're looking for. However, being on planning commission for almost 9 years, there's many times the vote didn't go the way that I wanted it to. And that's okay. That was the will of that council. So that's the way it goes and you let it go. And if it comes back around, if it's possible to come back around in the future, try to do a better job.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Okay, Donna Lawrence. Donna, you need to unmute.
I got her.
I'm counting on Izetta. So before the vote, I would hope I would have done my due diligence to study all sides of an issue. And by the time it comes to a vote, then if I lost, let's say, it's not a personal, it's not a personal thing because you're working for the public, for the people, but I know that it's hard to let things go. Anyway, I would hope that I would just take a deep breath and say to myself, let it go, and then try not to let my disappointment show on my face. But I agree with everything everybody else has said. You can't hold grudges. You really do have to let it go, and so that you can all work together. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Donna. Any follow-up? Okay, question 3, we're going to start with Tiffany, and then we're going to go in order. It would be Tiffany, Scott Randall, John Grant, Dan Richardson, and then back up to the top with Donna, and then Jeff, and then John Willer. So question number 3 for Tiffany is, finding the right balance between a passion and what we can realistically achieve can be in a difficult internal conflict. How would you manage such conflicts as a city councilor? Tiffany.
All right. my current position at the college is the student engagement and recruitment coordinator. So I oversee and advise students. Like, I meet with them regularly, all the time, and this is something that comes up every meeting. They have high expectations and goals and hopes. And so this has provided me some perspective for this topic, because sometimes our hopes cannot be achieved, but I always ask and tell and use myself to stay level-headed and be realistic in what we're trying to achieve. And if we don't have unrealistic expectations or goals, that will help lessen when dealing with the unavoidable internal conflict. So those are some tactics that I use when dealing with this with students. You know, they have their big eyes and they want to, you know, this, and this, and I let them work through it and we learn together what we can and can't achieve. So I work with this every day. So I'm pretty good at managing it, and just stay level-headed is always really, staying really level-headed really helps for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up for Tiffany? Okay, Scott Randall?
Yes, this ties in with the previous question, I think. Different viewpoints and opinions of the fellow council members and stakeholders and citizens need to be understood and given due consideration when seeking the outcome you desire. You should use your skills and talents in persuasion and diplomacy and gain as much agreement as possible. With your, as much agreement as possible, and you should also be conscious of the fact that there's limitations on what you can achieve, and so not everyone's going to be happy with the results, and be willing to accept that you're not going to get everything the way you want it to be.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Okay, next is John Grant. John? I can't see John. Is he muted?
John, can you hear us?
Oh, sorry about that.
There he is.
Okay. So I definitely think that it's okay to be passionate about subjects. And I definitely think that with the job of a city council member, that you have to go in with an open mind to be able to make the best decision for the community. And a lot of that you have to somewhat set aside your passions, because you're not going to be able to always make the best decisions if you're not thinking about the best outcome for everybody else. And I think that you just need to do the best to conduct yourself and work with the other council members.
Thank you. Any follow-up for John? Dan Richardson?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is something I deal with more or less daily in working with natural resources. You can't necessarily fix, say, a river or a forest all at once. It's about keeping a clear vision and then moving toward it as best you can, step at a time. And I'd suggest it's not really a conflict. But we really want to see counselors who can think big from time to time. And an engaged counselor will have maybe more ideas or interests than he or she can realize, and that's okay. I think maybe the important part about keeping that balance for oneself is just remembering that a counselor is one person on a board, and that while passion is good and we should cultivate that, compromise and common ground and feasibility are the other pieces that have to fit into place. I could go on, but
Thank
I'm going
you.
to call it good right there.
Thank you, Dan. Any follow-up? Okay, back up to the top, Donna Lawrence. Unmute yourself, Donna.
I'm dinner.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. I
Go
see
ahead,
that.
Donna.
When I was younger, and worked on some boards when I was younger, I would get these ideas and I'd think, why can't everybody see how important this is, that it should be what we need to do first and be a priority. But then I learned that not everybody has the same priorities and visions that I have, and they just might have better ones. And that's the good thing about a board or a commission, that you bring all of that to the table, and you get all of these ideas and information, and you go, oh, okay, I get it. I guess it just boils down to my passions aren't necessarily everybody else's, and vice versa. And again, it comes back to compromise and respect for each other, and listening, paying attention and listening, and letting things go, just like in the previous question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Okay, Jeff Stiles.
Yes. Having been a business owner for many years and dealing with my dreams and the dreams of my kids and wife and employees and all the other things, patience is a big part of it. Also with the industries that I was in, it was very difficult, a lot of conflict and trying to work out conflict between people. So dealing with that, I've found a way to look for different options and to turn the table and try to see things from their side of the table and why they are arguing the way they are arguing. And oftentimes I learn a lot more by doing that than I ever would just by hardening my own passion. And we get things done much better that way.
Thank you, Jeff. Any follow-up? Okay, final answer from John Willer. John.
My balance would be to advocate for your cause to the best of your ability and accept that the majority prevails. You can't always get your way. You got to do what you can with your resources. Another thing that comes to mind, which I think I took from a book a long time ago, is first seek to understand and then be understood. So if something can't be done, the knee jerk isn't to argue, argue, argue. The first impulse would be to understand the other viewpoints and then try to become understood.
Thank you, John. Any follow-up for John? Okay, question 4. We're going to start with Scott Randall, and we're going to go in reverse order. So it'll go Scott Randall, then Tiffany Prince, then John Willer, then Jeff Stiles, then Donna Lawrence, then Dan Richardson, and last would be John Grant. So question number 4 for Scott. Name one challenge or opportunity that you feel the city should address and why.
Yeah, I think economic development and growth. I think all other issues can be largely mitigated by a thriving economic environment with plenty of opportunities for the citizens to earn good incomes and pursue their goals and ambitions. I know this is an area the city has been addressing for decades with some remarkable success, but it's a continuous challenge, and I think it needs to stay a high priority for the council.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Okay, next is Tiffany Prince. Same question.
So I currently am the president, what do we call it, the president of the beautification committee for the city. So that's where my heart kind of lies in answering this question. So I think that the city could really take an opportunity to echo back what the beautification committee's work is doing. And that goes from anti-littering to education, to the Cirrhosis Voice Fountain. So we're doing a lot of stuff. And I think that addressing those beautification issues in the city, those efforts can improve like the city's self-image. It can improve the morale of all of the population that lives here. And it will also leave an excellent lasting impression on the tourists that do come through here. That way, you know, gets more people coming to our city or wanting to move to our city, enjoying being in our city. I think that, you know, having a happy population and high morale in the people who live here, I think is a good foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. John Willer.
So I think one of the biggest opportunities that I see is the loss of businesses, which another name for a business is an employer, especially in the downtown area. I like to drive through downtown on my way to work. I see a lot of empty commercial buildings. The Pioneer Building just came up for sale and rent. And so it's kind of a catch-22 situation because we also have a very tight job market. It's very hard for me to find employees that can work in my businesses. So there's that. Now, I don't know what the solution to it is, and I admit that freely, but that just means I'm willing to listen to everybody and to thoughtfully consider people's opinions who are smarter than me.
Thank you. Any follow-up for John? Okay, next is Jeff Stiles.
Thank you. Apparently there's a person outside blowing, so I hope you can hear me well. Business environment. Without businesses, we have no city. Making sure that we are not impeding businesses from starting, growing, and coming to this town. I also look for things that would be social gatherings. I know we're supposed to keep apart right now, but social gatherings and opportunities for people to get together and become more of a community so that we know who our neighbors are, we know who the city is about. And we've had quite a few of those. The Chamber has done a very good job of it with the beer fests and the car shows and things like that. But more opportunities like that to make sure people enjoy living here. My wife and I moved here 23 years ago and have had multiple opportunities to leave. And we always decided to stay because we like this community and we want this community to thrive and be the best it can be.
Thank you, Jeff. Any follow-up? Okay, Donna Lawrence.
Hear me? I am just gonna go by, I don't have any like thing in my mind, any priorities there, but I do hear that a lot of complaints about the planning department. And so I'll just address that. Like developers try to come into this town or builders want to do something and they have to deal with the planning department. And it's like sometimes they get stonewalled or they get misinformation and there's a lot of frustration there and a hold up as far as time goes. Time is money when you're trying to develop a business or build homes or whatever you're trying to do. I've had the opportunity to call planning 2 or 3 times on personal matters and have been on both occasions referred to codes. Planning says that's not under our purview, that belongs to codes. I call codes, oh no, that belongs to planning. And I have to say, everybody in both those areas have been very nice to me. It's not that, but it's like they're playing tennis or something. And so I think, well, you know, don't they know what their boundaries are? Don't they know what their jobs are? So maybe it's a training issue. This has to be more defined as far as what planning is supposed to be. And then under that, what codes is supposed to be in charge of, and planning needs to be told what codes is in charge of. so that there isn't this frustration of developers often get, or Joe Schmo in the community would feel this frustration. I don't know what the fix is, but probably it's a Julie matter, city manager matter to look into. I don't know, but when the public, anybody from the public calls the planning department, they should be made to feel like they're important and they're being focused on, and the people in that department will do whatever to get the information to them. And from what I've heard, sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you can almost hear that deep sigh of, oh, great, I have to deal with this person. And that isn't a professional thing to do. So that's it.
Thank you. Dan Richardson.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is not a rhetorical question. In turning it over and reflecting on it recently, it occurs to me without a doubt, COVID-19 presents our community, I suppose all communities, with a singular challenge. And it's something we didn't look for, but it's here, and it's creating issues for people who are working, workers, for families, for employers and local businesses. So I appreciate the council's support of the proposed economic recovery fund outlined in this coming year's budget. And I think that's an appropriate initial response. No one has a roadmap toward what might be called the next normal, or what I think of as the next normal, but the city council can and should be engaged in leading the discussion about that for this community. I think that's the opportunity to seize, not that I or anyone particularly has all the answers, but rather that there are answers to find. So in other words, to restate it, I would say the city should convene a community conversation with how to respond, how to build from and grow from, and find the potential positive outcomes from the COVID-19 disruptions.
Thank you. Any follow-up for Dan? Okay, last we have John Grant. John?
Thank you. I would like to see an expansion of the urban growth boundary. Well, this was more or less my idea before COVID-19 hit us, but the expansion of the urban growth boundary, so that way we can try to go out and attract some bigger companies, or be able to get some housing developed, and be able to create some jobs within our community, as well as keep our housing affordable.
Thank you. Any follow-up for John? Okay, last question. This time we're going to start with John Grant, and we're going to go to Dan Richardson, and then back up to the top with Donna Lawrence, then Jeff Stiles, John Willer, Tiffany Prince, and end it with Scott Randall. So John.
Yes, sir.
Being a city council member requires significant time commitment outside of regular meetings. What is your understanding of this commitment?
My understanding of this commitment is just with everything that I've ever accomplished or done in my life, is I got to give it 100% focus. And if I can't make that commitment, then it's not something that I should be proceeding with. I am, in my early 30s right now. I have 2 young children. I manage a food service company, and as well as a vice chairman on the board for one of our political action committees. a director on the Chamber of Commerce, and I volunteer as much as I can. And it's all about making adjustments. Most people don't think that I'm able to spend as much time with my family as they think that I would with everything that I have on my plate. And I 100% have tons of family time. It's just because I block things out. I always make time. And I give everything 110%. I think a lot of it is, cutting out that TV time, cutting out, going out with, friends, or going on, just overall prioritizing. And I think that anything that you should do, you should go at 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Richardson.
My understanding, Rich and fellow city council members, is that city councilors put in differing amounts of time outside of regular meetings based on their related interests and their committee participation. Some committees perhaps being more demanding than others. And that something like 10 or 12 hours a week might be a realistic average commitment. That said, there might be, I suspect there's a sort of rhythm to the demands on one's time as a counselor, sort of peaks and valleys, if you will, times where a counselor might really need to dig in and spend the time or overtime to pursue a big idea. So at those critical junctures, when you come to the crux of a meaningful issue, you just have to spend the time that it takes.
Thank you. Any follow-up for Dan? Okay, back up to the top, Donna Lawrence.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so time commitment. So I believe people should come to meetings prepared, and it's always amazing to me that some people don't. But city council is a very important responsibility. So there would be a lot of reading involved, a lot of driving around town, looking at sites and what people are talking about, listening to people. And I know that the council members have at least one other meeting that they attend, at least one, sometimes two. And then they're supposed to report back to council. And showing your face at community events and just, I think being a good reflection on city council members should reflect well on city council. They should live that type of life. So just be prepared, and there you go.
Thank you, Donna. Any follow-up for Donna?
I have another thing. You want to hear it?
Go ahead. Yeah.
With all that time stuff, though, I know now that we're going to get paid a lot of money. That's a joke. That's a joke.
I'm glad you clarified that, because my follow-up question was, okay, so you're doing this for the money. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jeff Stiles.
Yeah, I would expect that there would be outside meetings between 3 and 5 per month, because not all meetings are once a month. Some are a couple times a month or even weekly. I also would expect that there's at least 8 hours of reading before each meeting. So I think there'd be a considerable amount of time to prepare for the meetings. And being a empty nester and retired, I now have time for that. So that's why I'm pursuing it at this point.
Thank you. Any follow-up for Jeff? John Willer, same question.
So I researched this and I went down the list and I made a list. And the first thing is the packet review, because you have to show up prepared for a meeting, and not showing up prepared is being very disrespectful to everybody. There's 2 council meetings a month. There's no regular council meetings in August, but there have been special meetings in the past in August. I believe there's a quarterly goals meeting. The League of Oregon Cities, special events in town. There's a budget meeting and a budget committee, and then there's separate committees like urban renewal, airport, historic, and I think water, and probably more than I listed.
Okay, thank you. Is there any follow-up on that one? Okay. Tiffany Prince.
My understanding of the time commitment for city council is fairly realistic and accurate. As a couple of things, I ran against Russ Brown in this position, I think it was almost 2 years ago. So going right into it, I already know the time commitment involved. I know how much work it takes to putting into your city packets, because I used to make board packets, and so nothing would, frustrate me more than unprepared board members. So I know that there's a lot of work and time and commitment required to be prepared for those city council meetings and other engagements in the community or other required meetings where your presence is encouraged and sometimes also required. In addition to, I think that not a lot of time, but time will be given to being friendly and approachable by community members when I'm just out. What if with whatever I'm doing, I could be at the grocery store, I could be here at work, anywhere. If someone wants to come up and talk to me, I feel like that is also, that respects as much time as needed as well for them to be able to chat or whatever it is they want to talk about. So thank you.
Thank you. Finally, we have Scott Randall.
Yeah, I've been very aware of the energy and time needed to fulfill the demands of a council position. And it's the reason I have not sought a position until now. My family and career have always taken precedence, and I felt I'd be doing a disservice to myself and my community with any attempt to serve while preoccupied with those other concerns. Now I've reached a point in my career and my family where I can fully commit the time and attention needed to effectively serve my community. I love the Dalles, and I would gladly devote myself to service on the city council.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Okay. I'd like to have a short discussion regarding, is the council prepared to proceed tonight to vote somebody in, or would you like to wait till June the 8th, our next council meeting? Anybody?
I'm ready tonight.
Was that Linda?
Yes.
Yeah. Councilor Runyon, you're muted.
Not anymore. Yeah, I'm ready to proceed tonight. I would propose an idea that I've used in similar situations when we have really 7 excellent candidates. I've read all the resumes at least 3 or 4 times, and they did a good job tonight. And the Zoom world is an interesting world as opposed to dealing in person. But I would put out there that to narrow this down and at least get a start going forward, that it's my idea. Nobody likes it. If I lose 4-1, that's okay. I'll go home. Well, I am home. That maybe we each name our top 3 in no particular order out of the 7 to move us along. And then we can go from there. What do you think of that?
Any comments on Rod's idea? Councilor McLaughlin, Councilor Miller, Councilor Long Curtis?
I'll go along with Councilor Runyon's suggestion.
I can do that.
I'm fine with that as well.
Okay.
Right.
Why don't we all take a few minutes, and when you're ready, raise your hand, so make sure I see you. And when everybody is done, we will then proceed with reading 3 names. So get to it, and I'll continue to watch the screen to make, Darcy, I can't see you, so you're gonna have to just let me know.
Oh, I think I can still do the hand signal that Izetta said online. Sorry, not the full hand.
I like
One
that
finger.
one.
I love Rohan too.
Tim, I trust you're finished. Councilor McLaughlin? Okay. Linda's done. Rod? Okay. Councilor Long Curtis?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Why don't we start with Councilor Runyon, since it was his idea.
There, okay. All right, and again, my idea is that in no particular order. I'm hoping Izetta will help us keep track. Sometimes these procedures take care of it on the first time through. You just never know. So in no particular order, my 3, and I again congratulate all of you for being involved in this. It's not easy. I know what it's like to be on both the winning and the losing side of things, and I would encourage you to keep on being involved in our community and our committees. My 3 are John Grant, Jeff Stiles, and Scott Randall.
John Grant,
Jeff
Scott
Stiles,
Randall,
Scott Randall.
and Jeff Stiles. Got it.
Yeah.
Councilor Miller? You're muted. Councilor Miller, you're muted.
I'm sorry, that's my fault.
Okay.
Am I good now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my 3 are John Willer, Donna Lawrence, and Scott Randall.
Scott Randall, John Willer, and Donna Lawrence, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Long
Okay.
Curtis,
Say those again, please.
Donna
John
Lawrence,
Willer, Donna Lawrence, and Scott Randall.
Thank you.
Counselor Long Curtis,
Dan Richardson, Tiffany Prince, and Scott Randall.
okay, I heard Dan Richardson, Tiffany Prince, and Scott Randall.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin,
Well, first, I'd like to thank each of you for coming out for this position. And I know it is a challenge, and each of you did a very good job, I thought. I was a band director and an instructor in class, and to be fair, I did a rubric and I scored everyone. And so I came out with these three individuals as being top scorers. It is Scott Grant, John Weiler, and Jeff Stiles.
I heard John Grant, John
Yes.
John
and-
Willer,
Willer, yes,
Jeff,
and Jeff Stiles.
okay, my tally, Izetta, correct me if I'm wrong, I've got 3 for Scott Randall
Yes.
and 2 each for Jeff Stiles, John Willer, and John Grant.
Yes.
Okay. Any ideas on how to proceed from here? I would expect that maybe the next step would be entertaining a motion to nominate one of those 4 people.
Well, do we have anyone with a tally that's the lead? Is there anyone with consensus from the
Scott-
council?
Scott Randall got 3 votes and 3 others had 2 votes.
Do we want to have any discussion about why maybe, just in case we bring up points that the other person that we haven't thought of and that maybe weighs into our final decision? Or are we just
Is the
going on
council
what we
okay?
independently think?
Is the council okay with that?
No. I don't know about
Council
why.
McLaughlin? What's
I-
that?
I basically came up with my top 3 and, can't we find some consensus? If there's one that has the most scores, that would normally be the person that would be selected. You had the most consensus.
Scott Randall had 3 votes and 3 others had 2 votes.
I'm going with Scott Randall.
You
As
want to
my-
make that an emotion? You
I'll
want to
make
make a
that-
motion?
I'll make that as a motion, yes. I move to select Scott Randall, Scott Grant for the position of, to replace
Say-
Russ Brown's position. What is that position?
You used 2 different last names. There's.
Let me look. Scott Grant.
No.
Scott Grant. That's John Grant.
Oh,
Scott
all right.
Randall.
Well, now who has the top vote getting?
Scott Randall.
Randall.
Oh, I can't hear. Try that again.
Scott Randall.
Okay,
got
Scott
3
Randall.
votes.
Scott
Right,
Randall.
Izetta? Let's make sure we're correct on this.
Yeah, I
Izetta?
put the wrong person down.
3.
Scott,
Okay,
let me go back and double check on this because I don't want to make a mistake.
We don't want you to. He said.
Well, Scott Randall is the one that you have reported as being the top vote getter, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So then I
Yeah,
will, I move that Scott is, Randall is the person that's to be selected.
I'll second that.
it's been moved and seconded to appoint Scott Randall as the council member to replace Russ Brown.
Yes.
Is there any discussion? Does anybody want to explain their vote, or do you just want to move the vote?
Move to vote.
Okay, I'm going to ask Izetta to call a roll call, please.
Tim McLaughlin,
Aye.
Linda Miller. Aye. Darcy Long Curtis,
Aye.
Rod Bunyan.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to echo the words of a couple of council members who expressed their appreciation to all 7 of you for sticking your neck out in a thankless task. And I'll just refer you back to question 2. Please don't take the fact that you weren't voted in personally. And we appreciate your time and appreciate your candidacy. And we certainly hope that you'll stay involved with the city. I know that looking over the resumes and the applications, many of you, all of you have had a lot of experience working with committees and with the city. I would encourage you to stay with that. And I must say too, that if I was up to a vote for me, I would have had a tough time voting for Tiffany, because I don't want to lose her on the beautification committee. And I would have had a tough time voting for Jeff, because I wouldn't want to lose Jeff on the plan commission. So thank you all very much.
Mayor,
And congratulations to Scott Randall. Yes, Julie.
would you like to set an oath of office for the next regular council meeting on June 8th?
I do not see a reason why not. Does anyone have a problem with that?
No.
Anybody?
Scott, are you available for that on June 8th?
I'll be there with bells on.
Scott Randall?
Yes,
All right.
You'll be there, right?
absolutely.
Totally? Okay. Great. Okay, is there any other business come before the city council?
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. With that, I am hereby adjourning this meeting. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.